You can tell me, what's the most money you made at one time, any given moment in your career?
Off of one load?
Yeah, off of one load.
175,000.
175,000.
Yeah. I've never had anybody hit my load, but I was running the perimeter. We were heading home empty, and I was running the perimeter home, and this lady had decided she wanted to pass us in Kansas on a 2-lane road, and bumper to bumper we were 175 feet long. So
how wide was it? I know you can only close it to a certain.
Blown out 14, nothing special, 14 wide.
Okay.
It's 14, maybe 16. I don't remember. But we were not impeding oncoming traffic. She had enough room to get around us, but I don't think she knew how long we were. So she come out, and she got about halfway down the trailer, and there was a car coming back. There's nowhere for her to go, and so she slammed on her brakes. She went off on the shoulder to avoid the oncoming car and the head-on. Lost control, come right back, and I thought she was going to hit my rear escort. She hit the trailer, fortunately. And fortunately, because the trailer was unloaded, the impact was good enough that the trailer picked up. I saw it in the mirror. The trailer picked up and moved over. And that absorbed some of the impact for her. Did no damage to me, to my trailer, but it ruined her new car. Fortunately, she had a newer car, and she had the airbags and side airbags. And she was fine. She walked away, just shaken up. That one was probably the worst I've been involved in. On the dual lane, we travel 35, 40 mile an hour. I've had some people decide to play chicken. Even with the officers, they'll play chicken with the officer, and the officer will get them over. But once the officer passes, they keep going. And that one, that's what scares me. Someone's going to hit the trailer and get hurt. Fortunately, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, we're gonna pray that it don't happen.
Yeah, me too.
These people out here crazy, man.
Yeah, a lot of times when you see stuff out here on the road, it's almost always driver error. People that either have trailers that, a regular civilian that's got a trailer that doesn't know how to pull their RV or doesn't know how to pull a U-Haul trailer, or people who aren't paying attention, they're texting, they're on their phone or whatever, and next thing you know, they've run off in the median. It's I've seen some terrible stuff, Well, good is I provide really well. I mean, it's trucking, as you know, trucking. You can provide very well for your family. Several years ago, I'd read an article about the fastest way to get to the middle class is driving a truck. I mean, and there's a lot of truth to that. You can go straight to the middle class within 1 year, and be what's considered middle class in America. It's a good industry to be in. There's a lot of bad in it. I think our driver pool is not getting better, in my opinion.
Not at all.
I'm a young guy in the industry at 42 compared to my mentors who are in the business. There's not a whole lot of guys that are younger than us that are coming up. There will be. Somebody's got to take that place, but I'm not seeing it. And it's harder and harder to get to what we do. I learned from my uncles. I learned from my uncle's drivers when I grew up. One in particular who took me under his wing, and and he made me do it right. If I just barely chipped a gear going into gear, man, he was on my ass. You know, you hear stories about him taking a tire iron and thumping you across the knuckles. My uncle used to talk about my grandpa doing that, and my grandpa reaching out of the coffin sleeper and whacking him upside the head if he ground a gear. I didn't get none of that. I didn't get treated like that. But, you know, he would reprimand pretty hard if I scratched the gear, and I'm talking about the faintest scratch. It wasn't like you're sitting there jamming it. It was just like that little chip. He's like, nope, that ain't gonna work. So
yeah, nowadays, man, they got all automatics, and
yeah,
I mean, they ain't got half the stuff, you know, guys like you grew up doing.
No gauges.
Yeah, no gauges. They're just riding.
I no engine fan switch. That one baffles me. I mean, they've got it to where
they don't have the switches in there no more.
Yeah, some of them don't. A lot of them don't. They don't
Crazy.
Want the driver to control it. If the driver turns the engine fan on, you lose 40 horsepower, and then you lose fuel mileage. See, they want to control everything.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's pretty nuts. You know, the way that the industry has changed and what changes will come. You know? So. Off of one load?
Yeah, off of one load.
175,000.
175,000.
That was the gross. That wasn't that. You got a lot of escorts to pay out of that. It sounds good.
Till them expenses come out.
It sounds good until all that money dries up from escorts, trailer payments, drivers. You know, you got to have, on those types of loads, you got a pull truck, you got a push truck, you got 3 escorts, you got bucket trucks. You know, sometimes you can't do bucket trucks all in, or as a plus cost. Mm-hmm. So these customers, a lot of them now, they want it all in, and that forces you to manage your nickels a little differently.
Yeah,
you know? And they want that because then you're not coming back to them with a $50,000 bucket truck bill. You know, and when you could have done it for 40. You know, and so if we can manage it, we will. But that's probably the biggest paying load so far in my career. I got another one that tentatively is on the books that'll pay a little more. I haven't got a PO on it.
So that's a lot of money, but how much you think you spending expenses on that one?
About 50-60% is expenses. Fuel, driver pay.
See, that's what a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
You know, you put a load like that on the board, if it's at 175,000, I guarantee they won't even look at what kind of load it is.
Yeah.
They're just going to call and take it.
It could be 20 foot tall. I mean,
it could be the Titanic.
It could be. Try to get 20 foot tall out of New York, you know.
Exactly. Something like that. Yeah.
You know, those types of loads, it's not. This is what I tell a lot of people. That's not an owner-operator's game. And I am an owner-operator, but I do have my own trucks and some drivers. It is a difficult game. And the thing is that net looks really good. You know, you talk about, okay, well, let's say I clear 35%. All right. But what happens if I don't have another load for 60 days?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That 35% is going to go to something.
Yeah.
What do I do? What do I have those drivers do for the next 60 or 45 days before we gear up for the next one? You know, how does
also
that
depends
look?
How long it takes you to do the load.
Well, and a lot of times you're 3 weeks into a load. So usually you have anywhere from 2 to 7 days of build, unless the trailer's already happens to be built. But usually it's not. Usually it's never built for what the next load is. So you got 2 to 7 days to build. You've got anywhere from, depending on where you're at, where I live, it still takes a day to get down to Houston. I'm 140 miles away. And we mowed that trailer out.
Yeah.
You know.
You told me one time you got a whole team.
You got a whole team. You got to have 5 people running that trailer. Sometimes 6. So you have a whole team on that. Well, you know, and those guys, they all want to get paid handsomely.
Yeah.
So it sounds good, and it is. It's good when the freight's moving. When you've got load after load, back to back to back, it's great. Of course, then your guys are gone for 3-4 months.
Yeah.
For home, and then that presents a new problem. That balance is one of the hardest balances that I've yet to master.
Yeah, that's tough.
Trucking is, I don't know that anybody's mastered that part. I mean, really, even the big boys.
I mean, there's so many variables. Man.
There is, you know. We had one time this year we sat on a state line waiting on a permit for well over a week. Just waiting for a week to get a
Just one permit.
Just one permit that we had applied for 60 days earlier.
60 days?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff people don't factor in when they
Right.
look at stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what I try to tell people on my page. You know, you might see a big number,
yeah,
but you got to look behind that number and see what you.
Yeah, I mean,
what's
when you
going
run a
to entail.
13 axle, so 13 axle, like to me, a 13 axle that is the pinnacle of an owner operator's career. And a lot of guys start out 6, then move up to 7, then you move up to 8. I think that there's a skip from 8 usually to 11 because most guys already have a 4-axle truck. You go buy a 232. You automatically on 11. So most guys, 9 axles an archaic trailer. 10 axle doesn't make sense unless you're already on a 3-axle truck. And so the next step from 11 to 13, but that step is huge, and most people don't know how big of a step going from 11 axles to 13 is, because you know you run a 9 wide or 10 wide trailer, you're 110 feet stacked up.
Yeah.
You know, you got to escort. You got permits everywhere you go. Then now, instead of stacking your 11 axle up to 78,000 pounds when you're empty and legal width, and you can truck a little bit at night to go get your next load, or leave out of the house a little bit later than you wanted to go get your next load. Whatever the case is, on that 13, it's a whole different animal.
That's
and
right.
then what that 13's got to make, you can't make 11 axle wages on a 13 axle. It's a totally different game. So, my biggest thing I've noticed with my 11 axle owner operators is they see a 13 axle guy making 50,000 on a load, for example, and they're doing 35. They didn't recognize you had $7,500 more in cost than they did.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, instead of a $300,000 trailer, you got a $500,000 trailer. And that $200,000 more for that trailer is what's that cost you?
Yeah.
A lot of guys don't really, not all guys, but a lot of guys don't really sit down and look at that, put that paper to pencil, and realize you really about make the same money unless you've got a really good client, or you should have clients that need that 13 axle where you can justify the added cost. At this point in my career, I've got the 13s and the dual lane, and I've got some smaller stretch trailers, 7 and 8 axle stretches that we use. But I don't have any more 10s or 11s. But that's because I've got owner operators that have filled that gap.
Yeah.
So I don't play in their sandbox, and I want to keep them loaded and busy, and that's what has worked for our business. But we're moving, we're loading so many different pieces of equipment with our clients. Then that way we can service, from A to B.
Yeah.
A to Z really is what I mean to say. Service just about anything. I lost $225,000 on the load. I didn't get to haul it, so I spent $225,000 and didn't get to haul it. And the client and I didn't agree on back charges, and they refused to pay. So I lost $225,000.
$225,000
cash money. So I say it's that's hard. I mean, that's a hard loss for. We're small. I mean, we are the definition of a mom and pop outfit. We're leased to DD&S, who is very good at taking care of us and backing us. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. They don't. I don't have to worry about. They're like Landstar or like any other company that's owner operator based.
Yeah.
They're there to be your back office and support you and make sure that when you get the load done, you get paid. And And if the credit's done right, they take the risk. I don't. So that there's an upside to that.
Yeah.
But that was the worst ass whipping I ever took to date, and I hope it's the worst in my freaking career, because that was literally the worst. And it spanned over 45 days, 2 months, something like that. It was a nightmare that never ended.
That's a lot of pressure, man, on one person.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah,
a lot on your shoulders.
It's hard on a marriage too.
Oh yeah.
Fortunately for me, my wife just shrugs her shoulders and says you'll figure it out. But that wasn't. We've been married 10 years now, so that wasn't the case until about 3 years ago, and she's like, yeah, whatever. So
sound like you got a strong woman on your side.
Yeah, she's strong. If you only knew how strong that one was. She's and headstrong, very headstrong. But, you know, she's really good.
That's right.
Patience. It's taken me 20 years to do what I do. It's going to take anybody else. You know, most guys, there are some that get a break in their 20s that get in this business and do what we do. My cousin's one of them. He's had an opportunity in his late 20s. He actually came in and was running for me. Started running for me. He owned his own truck before then. Was doing flatbedding in the Intermountain area, Salt Lake,
Brendan?
Idaho. Yeah, Brendan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Old Biggins, as he calls himself. He's got a pretty badass cab over.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, Brendan started running for me on 7, and worked his way up to having an 11 axle, and he's got a 13 axle. Actually, it's a 14 axle dolly system. We haven't had any dolly work in a year, so it's just been sitting. But excuse me. He is a young guy that's accomplished quite a bit for his age and the equipment that he's bought, and he's got paid for equipment now. I don't know if he wants me to say that, but he's accomplished some things.
Hey, that's a big accomplishment right there, man.
I mean, when you're in your late 30s and you've got a paid for truck and trailer, not only a paid for truck and trailer, but a paid for truck that is your dream truck.